everybody, and welcome to day, is it 16? I think it's 16. The title, if you're watching these on YouTube, the title in the video will tell you what day it is. I feel positive about 16. Let's stick with 16 for now. I shouldn't need to repeat it anyway. So, the last time we did a bit of cleanup. We added FKoverIK blending. We componentize the leg and the leg global. So we do have the leg. That is good. So what do we want to move on? You know, a handful of people say do another guided component, and I think the leg is a good candidate. And why not? Now, during the pilot season, I'm not gonna keep reiterating stuff that, you know, had extensive coverage in the pilot season. I've shown containering, why I do it, how I do it, and all of that. And feel free to use it, feel free not to use it. There's really nothing in what we do that strictly demands that you use containers. If they don't work for you, if you're in an older version of Maya, if they don't work in your pipeline, drop them. They're absolutely not necessary. But something I actually do like about containers, especially if you've wrapped the UI just a tiny bit, come on, set current asset, is this, that you can set a current asset, and to be honest, like, it'd be cool if it was a little bit more accessible and if it updated more reliably. Now, once an asset is set as current asset, every node you add is going to end up in it. So it's something that you have to be managing very carefully. It's easier to work outside of assets and then componentize by dropping stuff into it. Or if you have a bunch of scripts that you're willing to put together, you know, they'll do you. Now, what we are doing today is guiding the leg. And I have shown these. Actually, let's switch it to the IK leg to begin with. So I think we were good. Yeah. And we set these to have the blend working, so that's cool. I thought I changed the colors for this stuff. Oh, there you go. My custom colors did not kick in until I selected the bonds. All right, that's a new one for display bugs. Not a particularly harmful one anyway. Or maybe it was my selection. Anyway, so what we, oh yes, okay, it was connected parameters. And what we want to do is actually make the rig a little bit more resilient to guiding, and I think I've shown it with the guide for these. Now, to connect, and you'll see that if you move these, now that it's been unguided to properly connect elements around, there will be some breakage because there's stuff that relies on word alignment. You know, that's for another day to fix to make the guide more powerful, but it will not, as it originally did, move my control here. And the reason for that is that the buffer for this control, which the rig was actually controlling, needs to be, for our tests and for the rig to be in close to final layout, this needs to be connected to the God node. Otherwise, we're not really emulating what we intend for the full rig to be. And let me check these. So the FK also needs to be properly transformed by whatever the heap is going to be. We might need to add a couple connections. We should be getting to that. So what do you do in that case? Now, it's inevitable that you have to, at some point, to script something, especially if you want tools that put your components together for you. You can do a lot with very little. I mean, insofar, I think all of the scripting we've used is just these commands to add attributes that are not normally accessible from the add attributes interface. So types like matrix and message and so on. Now, I have added one, and I'm going to show you the script to do something like that. There's a problem with these guides. If you want to make them more modular, you normally need something like, you bring the component in, you want it with the guide, because normally when you bring it in, it has to be fit to some mesh or to some other parts of the rig. Or you might have deleted the guide, you want to bring it back in and reattach it so that you can guide a component in place, then attach it. Like, all of those things will require that you do some scripting. It's not strictly necessary, but if you want to sort of, like, air quotes, pipeline this kind of workflow, you will need some code. So without further ado, there's a type of attributes in Maya Sorry for that. There's a type of attributes in Maya called message attributes, which are supremely useful. So we'll get to graph evaluation proper, but what you need to know is that when you connect attributes of mostly any type in Maya, they can potentially trigger an evaluation of the rig. So if something in the geometry is requiring stuff down the graph, nodes will get dirtied and all of that, and nodes will be evaluated. That is true for cycles as well. So when you constrain two items, in example, we said it before, if you have two nodes and you have one connection going this way and another connection going this way, it might be a benign cycle, but it still has a cost. Now, the particular thing about attributes that are of type message is that they never get evaluated. They're just a way for you to have something on a node that you can choose to name whichever you want. The message one is a factory one, and it's present on every node, at least every node that I can think of. I don't think there are any that don't have it. And you can connect it anywhere. Name them if you create your own, name them whatever you want, and they're literally for you to use to basically walk the graph, or say on these config parameters I want to keep track of some other parameters. They're super useful for callbacks in example, but I don't want that to have any effect on the graph evaluation. You use messages for that. They've been there a long time. They've been treated in many books. Now, another thing which you have seen all over the place, no doubt, oops, don't want that, is compound attributes. So let me, yeah, sure, I can mess with this graph view. Let's take something that has a transform. So when you see something with the plus, there's two things that it could be in Maya. It's an array attribute, and that means that it's one attribute that has been set to type array. So an example, word matrix is one of those, and you recognize those by the square brackets index that you have on the side. And you have compound attributes. Compound attributes have children, and you can have arrays of compounds and compounds of arrays, and you can nest them. There's some nastiness here and there if you start going neck deep into this kind of stuff, but nothing that we'll encounter too soon. So to create an array, all you do is you create the normal attribute and you basically say you're an array, and Maya will take care of the rest. To create a compound, however, you have to create multiple attributes and add them as children to another. Now, why am I talking about all of this? Well, A, it's kind of useful knowledge to have in general about Maya, and I suspect a lot of you know it already, but in the past I've been surprised by how many people didn't even know the basics of this. The other reason is that when you want something like multiple connections and you're so multiple possibilities, I guess, and you're willing to script a little bit, here's a thought. This is my whole leg, and it's got a buffer. Now, in a guide state, I will want this stuff to be connected to this element so that it can be guided. And yeah, sure, let's do it. Why not? What can possibly go wrong? So then this is going to break a bunch of stuff. It will need an offset and all of that. But so in a guide state, what I want is for that to happen so that I move these around and my rig adapts. And I'm not going to keep doing the air quotes, but you get the idea. Whereas in your actual animation rig state, you don't care for that. In fact, you might even delete all of the guide before you publish it for other people to use. So you need to keep track of these things as you author. And the best way to do it is if you have some sort of central node, and I'm going to be using this as a notepad of sort. And under that central node, you have a couple of ports, plugs, attributes, whatever you want to call them, for you to use of your own device. Then you can keep track of a bunch of things, and as you author, you can keep track of these things manually. As you actually author the rig manually, it's a pretty good time to keep track of the things you want to swap. So you put the guide in place, and you go, okay, I like this connection to be here, but you had something connected already. And you go like, okay, I want to keep track of these so that in the future I know to swap them. And At a minimum, that can be your own bookmarks for you to do it manually. And that's why it's not bad to do it early. And eventually could become your own script. So under central node, there's two things that we care about. Some stuff only exists in guide stage. So we could create something called toDelete, and we don't really need to do anything with toDelete other than tracking that we will eventually want to delete it. So we're interested in these being an array, and we're interested in these being of type message. So we can just connect some nodes messages in there, and we'll know that that has to be deleted. My daughter is getting really growly. The other one, and this is a great deal trickier, is something where you want to swap, where you go, I have an original connection, and I have the guide connection that I want to swap as needed. Now you might have many of these, so this is also array, and it's also going to be of type message because we don't want this to have any effect on evaluation. Actually, sorry, let me correct myself right away. This is actually going to be our compound attribute because we want couples of plugs. So chat, help me out. Is this making sense at this point? I will hope so. My daughter is really upset by message attributes. I told them they're actually okay, but she doesn't trust me. So this is what we want. We want to create something like this. There are two separate things, and this is a triviality. So this one you could actually do with a single command like this, where you can go type message and just tell it that it's an array. So if you look at that attribute, you'll find that whatever the flag is for array, you pass it. The other one that's more interesting is this one. So I've actually super quickly, like, this takes no time at all. It will take you more time to dress these up in your own tools. So I'll be rewriting it live. It should be a triviality. Last famous words before he kills himself with bugs. And the way these actually, the shape this takes is, you can see that this is black because a compound attribute doesn't really have a type. And this is probably comes through if you flagged it must be either a typed attribute or something like that. And someone in chat is saying the flag is -m-multi. So yeah, there you go. Because calling it dash array like everything else in the API wouldn't have made sense. So yeah, there you go. If you're using the commands, add -multi or -m. Now, you can see that these original connection, guided connection, are message attributes. So let's do everything live because we like to live dangerously. Okay, let me get this window in. Again, you will see this is Charcoal Editor. I said it several times. I'm not sponsored, though I know the author. It's a great plugin if you need something done quickly, Maya while scripting, or especially if you're learning to script, which means you might not want to jump back and forth to an IDE as much as you experiment. It's definitely worth the price. And I had a quick look, and there's a free version that actually has quite a few features. I don't do it justice because we're not doing any large-scale development. Anyway, let's move on. So we do have a guide, and we want a space for those things. Now, config parameters doesn't seem like a great idea, so let's say, doesn't seem like a great idea to store those. Let's say that we actually create ourselves new parameters, and Lego, sure, let's do it. And they're parameters that are meant to be used only by tools or as bookmarks. So call it whatever it is, depending on what you intend to do. Because eventually, we'll see if we'll do it this season. It might not come to that, but because I intend these to be for automated use, then I'm gonna call it that. So I think at this point it's well known that I don't really like any APIs other than OM2. I have documentation open on my other screen, so occasionally I'll glance at something. These I've done several times in the past, in the pilot season. Sorry, just give me a sec here. And that might have actually come through even with the gain out. A little bit of green screen chatter. Let's see if I can fix that super quick. Yeah, I'll start chewing into my t-shirt a bit, but okay. So let's get back to it. And so selection m global dot get active selection list, and this is where you go. Okay, I need charcoal for the auto completion at least. The single mob, which is for m object that we're interested in, is going to be the first one in the selection. We're not going to do any checks. We have no time for that. I get them pen node, the first one. Then what do we care about? So my API, there's two things. You have objects like m objects, which are largely pointers to something in the scene structure in memory, you know, hidden under several layers, but that's what they end up being. And the other thing is functors or Maya function sets, whatever it is. And it's when you see something like MFN something. So in this case, we care about MFN compound attribute because we want to be able to work with an attribute. We want to create one, in fact. So this is the first one we need. Now we also need MFN message attribute to create message attributes or attributes of type message. We're gonna call these function cAtter for function compound attribute, and we're gonna call these function matter for message attribute. That should be all we need. Now the compound attribute itself, we might let's keep a simple name for now. Compound attribute, in fact, yes, I mix camel casing and underscoring as needed. Normally, stuff that comes from the API that is functors and things like that, I'll prepend like these, and my own stuff, I'll just use lower camel case. So we want to create one, and you're not attaching, you're just creating something that lives in the ether somewhere when you're doing these. And that should be FNC. Is there yeah, there's an autocomplete as well. Control space, go U, crease. So dot create, and it's obnoxious, so it wants two names. Now we say that we want one called, what do you call it? I deleted the notes. To swap? Sure. Let's go for to swap. Let's keep it simple. It wants a it wants a short name and long name, and you have to give them both explicitly, I believe. It doesn't assume the long name to be the same as the short name if you don't give it one. Now the other ones we want is message, we say original. So not great naming conventions here, but they'll do for now. So message original attribute and message guide attribute, guided. Guide is going to be fine for now. So matter.create, same thing. Let's say it's going to be nested under something. So we don't particularly, we don't need like really verbose names or anything like that. It should be clear enough from the fact that we'll be in the context of toSwap. And it is going to be hosted under toSwap, so you don't get like name sequence clashes in the plug name. Whoa, oh, green screen is chattering, something fierce. There you go. Chat, I need you guys to let me know when we start getting that much chatter, please. So same thing here. Now, does it do line duplication? Gets pretty close, I guess. So if you copy, another thing that's classic of IDEs that Maya doesn't have, I believe, is if you copy on an empty line, you'll get to the whole line. I swear I'm not sponsored. I just like these a great deal. So guided. Let's go for guided. Now, what else do we need? Not much. So the next thing, you normally want to, what am I doing? Yeah, I'm creating those. These are gonna get me objects, and then you can add children. So you can go sorry, just thinking for a second. Yes, so this functor is still attached to these basically, which means you can do add child and go origin attribute and do the same. Whoa, okay, and do the same for guide attribute. Then the last thing you want to do is to add that attribute through its object to a node, and for that you need a FN dependency node or FN DAG node, whatever. We're using DAG nodes, but MFN dependency nodes works for everything except for for all types of nodes, just it doesn't do parenting stuff because only DAG nodes have those. So let's go for something simple. MFN dependency node, initialize it to mob. We're keeping things simple. So mob is going to be my first selected object, and if you don't have one, you get an error. And lastly, we go fndet dot add attribute, and you only need to add the compound attribute in this case. I think that's it. I fully expect that to be all there is to it. There you go. So that's it. Now, what that should get us, do I have that thing here anywhere? No, I don't. Is what I was showing before. That way we can keep track of things. Now, the other thing that's interesting about messages like this is that you can connect anything to it. Any type of plug. There's no unique conversions. There's no nothing. Because what it literally tracks, and you can see it when you're here, you can choose to map, is basically the other object. And that's it. There's no real value to it. And then for the record, you will see the blue color for strings as well, because I think internally they probably do some memory mapping trick or something like that. It can be confusing. They're not the same thing. So a string type is completely different from messages, and you will get to it differently for another functor. Or maybe you would even get to it through the... No, I don't think you get to it through the message attribute. Anyway. Doesn't matter all that much. So what we have now with these is a way to track what we're doing. Now, we do want to do, to delete. To delete isn't as important because normally you figure that out once you're done with the guide. Let's keep it simple. Let's not do any of that just yet. But there you go. That's your entire script for adding a compound of two messages to any object that you have selected. Hopefully that is making sense. Now, we have added one to the leg. We might as well... Would you not need an array of message pairs with a compound attribute? You are actually right. I did not make it an array. See, that's why I like the chat. For the record, if you use OM2, you are not going to get free undo, so you would have to delete this manually, which should be pretty trivial. So if you delete to swap, you should get the deletion of the other two. And these just get, like, they keep hanging, which is a bit weird, but thank you very much. See, chat is useful. So what you want to do is at the functor level, I think after you create, doesn't matter if you've added or anything, you should be able to do, remember FNC after. I know that you will think, oh, I'm going to operate on this. This is just a pointer to where that attribute is going to live. If you want to operate on it, your functor is what you want. Like this is, if you come from the C API, this is confusing as hell, because these are methods. So you will be doing something like that in C, but there are properties in Python. At least I think they are. For undoing, do you create npx commands on the fly? Yes, that's an option. And I actually, well, it depends on what you're doing, I guess. But yes, it's perfectly possible to create undoable stuff and not needing the full plugin to register it. It gets a little bit involved and you need a nasty global somewhere to keep track of your stuff. It's a fair chunk of work to do it properly, but yes, I've done that. These days I tend to find that because I've been at my own stuff at home for such a long time, I tend to have everything I need, so I do have the stuff around, but I don't use it as much. I have a bunch of plugins with registered commands. It doesn't take all that long to write a plugin and register the commands. It's just more annoying than anything. But if you're at work and you need to deploy things, it's a bit more painful, so the ability to create commands on the fly is extremely valuable. And quite a few places, like large and mid-scale kind of studios, have that. Now, thanks for that reminder. So this is now an array, which is what we wanted. Do we want to create one in the, so what time is it? Okay, we've been about it for half an hour. We've been to it for about a half an hour. I could, like, this is a new thingy, so I could very easily duplicate it there. Let's do an application of it right away. Remember, I was using current assets, so when I added these, I fully expect it to have ended up in my leg container. So if you go asset, select asset contents, you will see that that has been added. Remember, when you manually work with that workflow, like when you manually manage that workflow, it's more than a little bit cumbersome. You have to be very careful. It's not that you're doing, you know, eternal damage. It's like, it's trivial to move things in and out of assets, but you have to remember to do it. So, and it's actually not bad UI wise, because you can drag and drop. So you can drag and drop an object that is freestanding or in another asset across to another container in here, and you will get what you want. Now, I don't know if when I duplicate, so if I duplicate these, is it gonna end up in the asset? Let's find out. Because I just realized, no, it doesn't. That's good. Go you, Maya. Now, I would like that under my leg global, because we do have a guide for that. Thank you very much. I shall rename these. And to add it to the leg global container, that's it. Like, you drag and drop, and now if my asset view here updated, it should be in there. Will it be? I have no idea. Let's see. Does frame work in here? No, that'd be too convenient. So let's check just to make sure. Yeah, there you go. Really, there's no frame? So yeah, this view is super useful, but it's very old and it seems like it was thrown together in a hurry, so it's quite janky. It doesn't have a lot of shortcuts in the outliner. Anyway, what's next? Let's start doing what I was saying that we need this for. So leg global, we do have something for whole leg here. We might as well keep these in good order. I might also want to save, because you don't tempt fate by not saving, as demonstrated before live on this channel. And what we said is that this is going to be very primitive, but we want to, so what am I looking at? This is the leg global. Don't worry about cycles. Messages don't cycle. You don't have problems. We would like the buffer for this thing. So this object here. This is going to be origin and guided. Do we want the general swap? Yeah, so yeah, sorry, I had to make sure I didn't do anything stupid. So when we say guided, because we don't care, let's say that the guide is connected from wherever, we don't care for where the plug comes from, because it's the stuff that we want to get rid of so that we can put the original one in. So what we care about is the guided destination, hence the name, as well as the origin that we want to reconnect into it. If you connect the guide and the thingy you want to swap in, you're in trouble, because this parameter is going to go out, this attribute is going to go out to this and that. So if all you know is the provenance and what you want the new provenance to be, yeah, you're up the creek, because you don't know where you want to connect it into. But this, if this were to go in here, you don't really care about. So what we want to do, and again, that's verbose, but it's kind of the details that this hinges around. The scale we don't have, so we don't care now. That means that this is already connected the right way. Open up. Origin, cool. And this is being guiding. Now my daughter is happy. Rotate and translate. We good? Yeah, it seems that we're good, because those streams are crossed. Cross the streams. All right. Sorry, this is a lot of talking and a lot of showing for something very simple, but this is the cornerstone of doing something where you can easily remove the guide and reattach it as well. Reattaching it is a little bit trickier, because the script, because you're reattaching, you're bringing something in, you won't, they won't exist. You won't have tracking for it in the rig anywhere. You will need to do the legwork to know what goes where, and that's where the import guide kind of scripts can get a little bit complex, but we're not talking much. So what else is this guy driving? Now, another thing that I like about going for the deletion kind of approach, where you go, hey, once you're done with the guide, make sure that everything that needs reconnecting, you're tracking. Everything else should just be brutalized away and deleted away, and it will save you a lot of trouble. So very often when you have something where, say, a rest angle that you normally want to be you will normally want to be a constant, is driven by a guide, you don't need to worry about what gets reconnected. Oh, it's a static value, I have to switch it to this and to that. No, because the guide is setting that constant for you. Once you delete the guide, the constant is set and you're good to go. For now, this is the only swap that I can think of that we needed in the leg global component we've done. I think my daughter is playing like these noisy books for kids, which are amazing. They can spend long time on them. Long baby time, which might be like 5 minutes, but they come through the mic with incredible clarity. So what do we want next? Let's start on the guide for the leg. What do we care about now? The FK. So here's the thing, another thing with guides that you have to think about. How many things do you want to guide, and how many parameters do you want to keep in check? What is the simplest way you can guide something? Now, in the case of the leg, we did mention that we will have to figure out with an animator what we want for the FK. 5 minutes is a marathon. Yeah, in baby time, 5 minutes is a very long time. 5 minutes of relative quiet is incredibly valuable. So we did say that, we'll have to talk to the animators and figure out, okay, what's the default for something like this? Is it going to be fully straightened up? Or is it gonna be the same as the IK at rest? We don't know. We'll find out. But it's something that we can decide later on. So when I set this to rest, I had set it by the IK, and this is the length we had. So have we moved this? Let's have a look. I think we guided it and moved it out of whack. It doesn't really matter. Anyway, what I wanted to get to is, now that we can swap, now that we have something that can track these connections for us, we can break a rig with, great confidence. And when I was saying choose something to guide, like in this case, I will probably choose to guide, I'm going to guide the IK, because it gives me a nice kind of on-screen feeling for this, where you can move something like this and see the lot changing. And then what I can do is push that IK straight into the FK buffer so that the two stay in sync. So let us do that. Now, is the buffer for this connected to anything? Translate, and the translate is coming from the input. So we're probably okay with that. We might want to link it to the leg later on, we'll see. That means that, and this is another thing you can do with this, if you connect something like an origin, sorry, if you connect the guy that's saying, hey, I am fatal, really? What the hell? No, I don't want to report anything. It was a while since we last got a crash. This is 2018. And we're still using 2017 for now. Are you gonna recover anything for me? Let's see. Oh, mine also takes over the cursor, so I have a big window cursor elsewhere. Anyway. Ah, man. That is so unnecessarily painful. Can I open these? No, I don't want to save an untitled empty scene. Okay. I really can't comment on these. Like, I can't make these entertaining. So I normally annotate 1, 2, or 3 X is my scene. Like after a crash, to know how dangerous they are. There's no telling what you get when you recover from a crash. This is a simple enough scene, and we don't do funky stuff, so we should be okay. But who knows? The ways of Maya are not known to man. It is not for us to know. Alright. Let's move on with this. What I was saying is, if you connect something to guide and nothing to origin, this is still a pretty good solution, because you basically, when your tool will run over these ports and go, okay, I'm reconnecting to this, reconnecting to that, and so on. If it finds an empty origin plug, it will just go, well, whatever, I'm going to disconnect these. And so, Control SRT buffer. According to saying smart test on Twitter, 31st of May 2017. We haven't even made it a year without a crash, and all we're doing is hooking plugs. Anyway, so I don't expect that crash to be lethal, but who knows? There you go. Somebody needs to do a Cult of Rig sign with, you know, days without accident. I'll retweet that if somebody does it. And now I lost my flow, man. What was it doing? Leg component. Okay. So I want to. This is the one we're blending. I would like to get the one we're getting the FK from. Come on. Which is gonna be that. So that is gonna inherit from vectoring. So there's gonna be a buffer that is the one giving us our aim, which is good. So that's a IK buffer getting us aim age. Yeah, we cool with that. So we want the word position for it. We don't care for the translation yet because they're gonna be in sync. We can do that at some other time. See, now I'm concerned like that when I connect stuff to here, like there's maybe some newfangled bug in this update for 2017. But you know, can't live in fear. So if I had to delete, I wanted to delete as well, because I'm gonna add nodes that are just for the guide, and while getting these and deleting it is great, it will get rid of all the DAG nodes, it'll orphan a bunch of nodes, it'll do a lot of work for you, and it's a good way to work. But I want to track right away what nodes I want to delete. So let's do that instead of talking about it. That way we also get to test these mythical. So should be adapter. I wonder if the simple name like origin was messing with Maya. Stuff like that has happened before. I think the type should just be message, and that will be it. And then apparently the other flag is M for multi. Let's see what happens. Okay, that's, you know, so far so good. I suppose you can also hear my daughter at this point. She's going from crying to happy, which is standard baby procedure, don't worry. Her loving mother is with her. So I want to take the word of that heap and the word matrix to decompose. Yeah, I can use that right away. So right away, as you create the node that you know is gonna be in the guide and nothing else, add it to the to-delete. Like, this is your bookmarking. This is your accounting for what you're doing. It will make your life so much easier if you're diligent from the start. Then you crash it, laughs. Oh yeah, but that's the thing, like, right? Other people's pain is clinically proven to be funny. So tell you what, let's do due diligence right away. So rotate to guided. That's cool. We don't want an origin because we want it to disconnect, but we now want it to rotate with the IK. Okay, we're doing all right. So far, so good. Now, we do have this node flagged as to delete. We're gonna be moving slowly because I need to get my brain into doing this without any scripts or any tools. This translate, we said we want to track it. This is where I could really use a shift drag to copy the connection. Is it so hard? Can't you do as I wish, Autodesk? Everybody will love you for it if you gave us a better node editor. So we're gonna say that translate, this is the original that we were connected to. Man, this is a lot of stuff to juggle without scripts, but mentally speaking. And this is the guided one. So now we know that we've done that swap. And we should be able to get the word translate from these because the FK buffer is not buffered by anything else. So there you go. Due diligence. And I'm gonna save every second now. So that's one buffer taken care of for the FK. And my hope is that, you know, it will probably take us like this week to guide this thing properly and get the rig into shape and all of that. But my hope is that we guide this thing, so it's all askew and stuff like that, because we haven't really been caring about where we move things. My hope is that we get something where maybe by the end of the week we can move the whole thing in place against the mesh, and then start writing the scripts to clean out the guides and see where that lands is. It might be a really good place, it might be a really terrible place. So tell me, yes, okay. So there's stuff that drives me insane sometimes. When you connect nodes and then they collapse, it will show you the message. It will decide to hide it, and you'll see it coming out of here. It can happen, don't panic, expand the node and like collapse and expand the node and see what's going on. Now, anyway, so the other thing you can do is take this node here. Let's be diligent right away. And add it to the to-delete. See, here's the other thing I'd like. A shortcut, say maybe even shift, where if I drag this to another port that already has a connection, it swaps. That would be useful, wouldn't it? Nah, they have fixed stuff. So somebody was saying, Autodesk fixed something. Nice one. They fixed a lot of stuff. It's just... the node editor you know, fairly good start, then a bit of a stop, then they took care of it again, and it so very badly wants just a little bit more work to be awesome, because there's a lot of stuff that is really good about it, but the actual user experience for the node editor as it stands, let alone adding proper compounding and comments and stuff like that, which will be amazing. I mean, amazing, it's like 2007 in XSI, you add all of that, but anyway, yeah, whatever, let's not reminisce. And so we have done that. Now the next thing we want to do is take control of the second buffer, and I've been spending a lot of time and speaking, like talking about the theory of these. I think it's fairly important. So hopefully everybody has it clear why we're doing these. Okay, where is that coming from? From here. So we want to take config parameters, tibia length for the translate. Okay, that is interesting because we have a swap where the tibia length is affecting only one attribute. We don't need to re-guide these actually, because the tibia length will be control ID, upstream tibia length will be control by the guide, so that is fine. What we do want to control, however, is the rotation of that buffer, which is the buffer is a child of this control that's moving. So locally speaking, because we're guiding, we're not going to move this stuff around. If I set the rotation of that buffer to whatever the rotation in my FK, in my IK is, we should be good, and the FK should be matching the IK. So for the record, come on. Ever so painful. Okay, I made it. TB start, let's see. Rotate. So this for us is just a diagnostic. We want to get the original rotation, not the blended. Be careful, you will get a cycle otherwise. Output 1, so we're gonna keep it that way. So let's go. Okay, to swap, guided, yes. Origin, nothing, because we want it to just go away as a connection. And what is it gonna be? Rotate X? Sure. Whatever. I forgot to pin it, so upon connecting something, it needs to be teleported a million miles away. That makes sense. Okay. What is going on here? What am I doing? Oh, it's... Oh. You... I hate you so much some days. Why are you doing this to me? Why have you put a unique conversion node in there? It's like you don't need it for the other thing. Oh, I know what it is. Because I'm taking the output right away. I should specify another thing in the expression. All right, for now, we're going to keep this diagnostic. It's going to go out somewhere anyway later on. So, fair enough, maybe. Could you please connect it? Do it for me, thank you. And I'm now getting lost as to... I thought this was connected. So, okay. The guided one is this. We wanted to remove that connection. What am I doing here? Give me a second. And the origin is that. Whoops. Sorry, the guided is that. I am so... Okay, the guided is that the origin is nothing. It will remove that connection for us. And this is, for the record, the reason why I swap. I've seen somebody, like, once I introduced them to these, like, go like, oh yeah, I can merge to swap together with to delete. You know, if I add a third port and stuff like that, don't do it. Keep them separate, because you want to reuse as much of your controls as possible to actually guide the rig. For the record, if anybody ever asks you, it's like we tried it a lot. Like, I've tried it at several workplaces. If animation ever asks you for offsetting the IK, this will basically be how you do it. So at this point, the FK is riding over the IK, and you can pretty much do something similar to what we will do to guide the IK itself. If you drove that guy through the FK, you will get the opposite effect of the IK riding on top of the FK. This is how you will do that. And at the same time, like, what we get out of it is that we can now guide just the IK and be good. So where we at? I reckon that other than the whole thing stuttering last couple minutes, which is necessary because we say we're going to be disciplined and cautious, this is the basic idea. That's where I'm gonna stop for today. I'm gonna have a quick look at the notes and see to rename a couple things. So if there are questions, like, please pop them up in the chat. Otherwise, it's gonna be a short and sweet kind of stream. Today we had no low hum on the audio, not too much chattering from the green screen. I'll call it a good day. Shame for the crash. Some nodes were teleported somewhere, I'm sure, but whatever. This is our disposable view where we do working. Now, you can also choose, because they're kind of disposable nodes in a way, you can also choose to be very obvious with your guide nodes if you want. The fact that it's connected to delete is, you know, if you have tools, if you write yourself a few scripts to manage these things, it's super trivial to select, to do something where, given a component name, you select the tool parameters and you go, okay, select me all the nodes to delete. You just inspect this array, this attribute, travel, walk down the attribute, the array elements, and select all the source nodes. It's very easy to tool up a workflow like this. And that's also part of the reason why I'm going so slow, because a lot of this stuff for me is Twitch, and doing it without tools, I have to think about what I normally will be doing in a script. So let's rename these to Lego guided heap matrix. We didn't add anything else. We got the FK riding on top of the IK. Now let's save these, and all of our there's only one to swap. Now if I deleted my guide, yeah, I'll do it some other time because it's gonna take me more than 5 minutes. Something that we'll probably do pretty soon, even if we don't write ourselves a tool set, is once I have a reasonable enough chunk of the guide, is write a quick script to demonstrate what I mean when I'm saying, look, you do this to swap the ports, you do that to delete the nodes, and so on. And you'll see that you can get rid of the guide and retain the entire component with the right functionality. I'm good with these. I'm kind of happy with where we got. The scene doesn't seem to have been destroyed in the process, so I'm gonna keep it with some reservations, but I think we should be good to keep working from these. It's an MA, so it should be healable if I find some weird thing with it. Chat, any questions? Are we good? Does this make sense? Is it something that people do? Is it interesting? Is it the first time ever you see it? I haven't seen it elsewhere, but I gotta admit, I don't watch other people rig. I don't watch tutorials. So maybe it's a common thing, you know, maybe everybody does it that way. Maybe it's not. I have no idea. For all I know, I might have just discovered boiling water. But yeah, I like it. Personally, I like working with these like live guides. I don't see them done enough, but also because I don't see much. And a very, very easy way to liven and deaden guides is literally just track what plugs to swap and what nodes to delete, and you're good. That's the entirety of what you need. And yes, you will need to tool these up, but it's very minimal. It's actually, The other thing I like about these and why I've used it didactically before is it's a pretty good introduction to scripting as well. It gives you some problems that have real meat to them, where you get concrete results out of it. You know, you get a kick out of it if you're learning to script, if you're learning OpenMaya 2, but they're not intractable. They're not massive problems. Like you're literally talking about, okay, I have a component name. In fact, if you want, you know, your homework, scripting homework, it's like given a component name, and you can get all possible component names just by looking for nodes of type asset, whatever it is, container node in the scene. Find, you know, the tool parameters, find the guide, find the tool parameters. If you configure the assets the way I did in the pilot season, where you'll also set, where is it? The parent-child anchor. It will be super easy to track this down, then look for it to delete, look for it to swap, and do your work. It's a lot easier to do it than it is to actually talk about it and do this thing manually. So I see no questions. I think we're just about at the 1 hour mark for the recording, so I am gonna call it. Thanks everybody for attending the stream. Thanks everybody for watching this on YouTube. I don't know when, it might be years from now. You know, and everybody might be rigging with Bifrost by now, or it might be, you know, or maybe Maya doesn't exist anymore. You're using a legacy product, or it might be next week. Who knows? But hopefully this will be useful for a while. Have a good day, everybody. And if you follow the stream, I'll be on the day after tomorrow, I believe. All right. See ya.